Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope you're all doing good. I'm doing good. It's like 23 degrees here in Toronto, and it's October 1st. That's crazy. And like I saw the weather for this whole week, and it's like in the 20s. I don't think that in my 20 years here that I've ever experienced that before. And I'm not complaining about that. I love it. People are still wearing t-shirts and shorts. I love it. But yeah, I just wanted to make another video for you guys, kind of like a continuation to that first video that I did, where I gave you a little bit of an insight into, my personal, I guess, journey and some things about myself. And today, I kind of wanted to talk about um, where my love for like sportswear apparel, which later on turned into a love for streetwear apparel, comes from, and also where I get my creative side from. So like I told you guys in my first video that I did, I was born in Africa in the 80s, and back then, we really didn't have access to, you know, the things that were cool. And when I say cool, I'm talking about, like, you know what I mean, like the Nikes, the Reeboks, apparel and sneakers and all of that. Like, we didn't have access to that. We didn't have stores. We didn't have a store that you can go into and buy these things. And I remember my mom, she used to get these catalogs. One of them was called, I think it was a French catalog, and it was called La Redoute. And the other one was a UK catalog, and it was called Freeman's. And these catalogs, they were like broken down into different sections, and you could order stuff from these catalogs, right? And I remember this very vividly because I used to look at these catalogs, and there was two specific sections that I always glued onto. Obviously, the toys section, because I was a little kid. We're talking about at this time I must have been like no more than 6, 7, 8 years old at this time, right? And I used to, obviously, like I said, the toy section and also the sports section. I've always been into sports, specifically basketball and soccer. Like, I've always loved those two sports. And I remember just looking at the catalogs, right? Looking at the sports section, like, you know what I mean? They used to have like all of the nice Nike, you know what I mean, apparel from back then, all of the Nike sneakers from back then. And remember, like, this is in the 80s. So a lot of these brands, they were in their earlier years. So a lot of the stuff that we look for today, like all of the vintage and all of that stuff, used to be in these catalogs, like the Jordan 1s, Jordan 2s, like all of like the earlier like Nike models. Yeah, and I remember like just looking at those things like, man, I love it. And I obviously couldn't get everything because I was a little kid, and your parents don't buy you everything that you want when you're a little kid. But I think looking back, that kind of turned into something, because whenever I had some money, or you know what I mean, I used to just go to the stores and buy these things. And you know what I mean, at some point it actually kind of became an obsession, because I used to buy a lot of it, right? Like, you know what I mean, a lot of sneakers, a lot of apparel. But yeah, I think you know what I mean, just looking back, I think that's where some of the, you know what I mean, my first memories of having a love for like specifically sportswear apparel comes from. Because back then, you know what I mean, streetwear, I don't even think that streetwear really was a thing. It was mostly people wearing sportswear apparel, and then turning it into what became, I guess, streetwear. And then later on, you know what I mean, streetwear brands started to come up. But yeah, so those are like my first memories of where my love for sportswear apparel comes from. And one thing that I want to say also is that, like, I'm not I'm not necessarily like a fashion guy. I do appreciate fashion, but I'm really, at my core, I'm like a sportswear apparel and streetwear apparel lover. That's, you know what I mean? That's where I stand. Those are the two things that I love. And obviously, you know, anyone that knows me knows that, you know, sneakers also. Like I have an addiction for sneakers from, again, from when I was a little kid. You know what I mean? I remember looking at those same catalogs, looking at the, you know what I mean? Again, the Jordan 4s, the Jordan 5s. I remember the first time that I saw the Jordan 5 on one of those catalogs, and like the clear bottom with the Jumpman logo. I remember those things so vividly. But yeah, I know, I think those are like my earlier memories of where my love for sportswear apparel, I should say, comes from. And now when it comes to my creativity, and you know what I mean, where I get my creative side from, obviously I'm a son of my mom and my dad, and I get things from both of them. But when it comes to the creativity, honestly, I believe that comes more from my father. So my father is actually an artist. He's a singer, producer, not really big or really too well known or anything like that, but that's what my father is. And I remember him telling me this specific story from when he was young, right? He was in the army back then, but he hated it, right? Like he knew that the army wasn't for him. And he found a way to, you know what I mean, to get out of the army, I think through a medical leave, because he had a lot of stomach problems, which were true, by the way, because he really did have stomach problems. And I have stomach problems because I got that from him. But yeah, so he managed to leave the army. But then there was a period of time in which he was in limbo, right? And he kind of didn't know what to do. But one thing that he knew is that he wanted to travel the world. And lo and behold, there came an opportunity for him to become a flight attendant. And, you know, and he took on that job. And actually, my earlier memories of my father is actually of him as a flight attendant, because I remember him getting dressed and all of that, like to go on the trips. And I got to travel with him a little bit as well, you know, around the world and stuff back then. But yeah, and one thing that I remember, right? So he was an artist, but he couldn't really, I guess, follow his dream back then, because being an artist in Africa, we're talking about the 60s, 70s. I mean, that wasn't really the way to go. Like people will look at you like you're crazy. But one thing that I remember about my dad is that my dad is very short in stature. My dad is probably no more than 5'5". I'm like 6 feet 1 inches tall, and I don't even really know where not that I'm super tall, but where I got my height from, because my mom is also not that tall. But yeah, I digress again. I remember my dad back then, maybe as a way to stand out because of his height, he used to dress differently from everybody else, right? He had a different style, right? And I remember people, his friends and everybody, family members, always giving him compliments about that. And the other thing that I remember about my dad also is that he used to have like all of the, obviously he was musically inclined, he used to have like all of the vinyl discs, like all of these American artists from back then. He used to have all of them, everything. And I kind of got these things from him because not to say that in my teenage years I used to dress super differently from everybody else, but I kind of used to have this thing where I try to look for things that, you know what I mean, not too many people have, right? Because I always wanted to have my unique style, right? And again, going back to creativity, I remember as a kid, I think my first memories of me being creative, it was actually with writing. Because I remember in school, my teachers used to always give me a lot of compliments about my, you know what I mean, creative writing. But yeah, you know what I mean? So I think that my father was kind of like the, you know what I mean, where I got these things from, because I even going back to like him having all of the vinyl discs and everything. I remember like as a teenager, I used to have like all of like the hip hop CDs and everything. I used to have all of that. I used to have like all of the Source magazines, all of the slam magazines from back then. Like I used to just, you know what I mean, be the guy that used to go to the, you know what I mean, to the record store and be there like looking for records and everything. So I think I got that from my father. So those are like my you know what I mean, my earlier, you know what I mean, memories. And I think these, you know what I mean, kind of are the reasons why, you know what I mean, I got you know what I mean, I got my love for apparel. Like I said, going back then, like just looking at those catalogs and stuff like that, and then being creative, like you know, like my dad is because, you know what I mean, because of my dad's like artistic side. But yeah, you know what I mean, like I said, I had a little bit of time today, so I said, you know what, let me talk to my people a little bit. I'm over here in the car kind of sweating because it's actually hot. And but yeah, just wanted to connect with you guys before I go and pick up the kids from daycare and stuff. But yeah, I hope you're all doing good. And I want to say once again, thank you all for supporting the brand and showing love. I really appreciate you guys, and look forward to, you know what I mean, more things coming out soon. And yeah, man, just, you know, go on the website, you know what I mean, it's linked in my Instagram page and everything. So yeah, one love.